Hey guys, LordModer85 here, and today we're going to be installing the PSMove service. So let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is get all those required software. The first thing right off the bat is SteamVR. Now SteamVR, you can install it just like any other application or software within Steam. I will be going over this very shortly just on how to do it, just a quick overview. The next thing we're going to need is the PSMove service itself. The current version out, or the latest version, is Alpha 9.0.1. The next thing you'll need is Zadig USB driver installer. Now this is to install the cameras themselves. Without it, we can't install the drivers properly. The next one is mainly for, well, it really is for mobile VR. So this will include Gear VR, Daydream View, Google Cardboard, Oculus Go, and Oculus Quest. Now, Trinus VR, there is a version that does work for PlayStation VR. So if you have a PlayStation VR with the PSMove controllers, awesome. You can use it with the computer as long as you're using Trinus VR, PSVR version. ALVR is specifically more geared for Gear VR, Oculus Go, and Oculus Quest. And then RiftCat will definitely work, I believe, with all of them. Except the PSVR, so definitely look into those. RiftCat itself is $17 US, €14.99 Euro. ALVR is free on GitHub. I think there's also a SteamVR version that's free to install, but the application on the phone, if you're using a phone, you have to pay money for. And then Trinus VR, I think there's a paid version that you have to pay for too, but I'm not sure. I don't know much about Trinus VR myself. Next thing you're going to need is Freepie. That's basically the translation software that the PSMove Freepie Bridge uses and the PSMove service uses to figure out where your ping pong ball tracker is in 3D space. And I'll be going over that here shortly. The next thing you're going to need is the PSMove SteamVRBridge version 1.5.1. 1.6 actually has issues with SteamVR, and quite a few games currently. I have had personal experience. I've had issues with 1.6 not wanting to calibrate right. My controllers aren't right. Buttons don't work. So I would definitely recommend 1.5.1. At least this is what we're going to be using for this tutorial. You will need, of course, the PSMove Freepie Bridge, just like I mentioned before. Version 16 is the latest version, so you will need that. Next, you will need a program called Driver4vr. This is mainly for PC VR users, because RiftCat, ALVR, and Trinus VR have the same function built into them, which is tracking software that translates from Freepie. PCVRs, obviously, PCVR headsets don't have this, or they don't translate well with that software because they don't work with those pieces of software. So you need Driver4vr instead of RiftCat, ALVR, or Trinus VR. So again, Driver4vr is mainly for PCVR users. And that cost $18.66 US and €15.97 Euro. It's 20% off currently on Driver4vr's website, so if you want to go grab that, that's probably a good time to do it. Now, it's been on sale for at least 2019. I don't know if it was on sale before that, but it has been on sale for the majority of this year so far. And last but not least, in the software category, you're gonna this is optional, of course, but I definitely recommend it. It's Autohotkey. And I tell you, when you start up PSMove service and everything, so you could play it with your computer SteamVR, it's kind of a pain in the butt to start each thing at the one at a time. So Autohotkey literally just streamlines all that, and I definitely recommend it. The next thing we're going to need to do is gather up all the hardware that is necessary to make everything work properly. And right off the bat, you're going to need the ping pong ball tracker. Now this is for the virtual tracker that will be going on top of the headset, if you have a 3DOF headset, of course. Now I have a previous video showing on how to make one of these for right around $5 or $6. I would definitely go check that out. I will be leaving a link in the description for that below. You will need 2 PSMove controllers. Not really too much about that. I definitely recommend buying that offline, or I think GameStop used ones are sold fairly inexpensively, so go check that out. You will need PS3 eye cameras, at least 2 to 4 of them. 4 is definitely recommended for room scale / 360-degree tracking. I definitely recommend the 4 camera setup just because 2 is mainly used for front facing. And of course, the main event, you will definitely need your VR headset. Either a PC VR, mobile VR headset. Of course, like I said, with Trinus VR, you can use a PlayStation VR headset. So one of those 3 options. If you're using a PC VR headset, you can use like the one I have, which is a DirectTech VR headset, or a mobile VR headset, which could be any of them. Now, Oculus Quest is kind of an exception to all of this because the simple fact is you have controllers, you have room tracking, you have all of that built in with RiftCat, so you don't need any of this. This is literally a budget basement setup. So the next thing you're going to need is a USB cable extensions. I have 3 15-foot active type cable extensions. Now, the reason I have 3 instead of 4, one of the cameras is directly above my desk, above my computer. The rest are around the room, making to where I only need 3 rather than 4. But for you guys, I would definitely recommend getting 4 of those. Next thing you will need is a Bluetooth adapter. Really, any of them will do. The cost of it will just depend on which one you get. I have a Asus Bluetooth adapter with a Broadcom chip in it, which costs $14. But the cheapo eBay specials, I should say, that are by around $4 or $5 that it'll cost you, have what's called a CSR chipset in them, and they work just as good. I have a couple of them, but I've had this one for a while. So the next thing you will need is a camera mounting brackets. A way to mount your cameras up on the walls or wherever you're going to put them. Shelving brackets definitely work. I will show you pictures of that, and that's what you'll definitely need. Next thing you're going to need is a small table or box / raised surface in order to tape your calibration mat to do the calibration for the controllers and the virtual tracker. It's definitely recommended to do it on a raised surface rather than the floor, just to make sure everything is tracked properly. You're going to need at least 1 USB-B type mini cable for the controller pairing for the PSMoveservice. Obviously, once you pair the controllers with your Bluetooth adapter, there's no real need to use the cable again, unless you need to repair them. And then last but not least, and this one's totally optional, is a PCIe USB hub expansion card. I definitely recommend it because the PS3 eye cameras take a lot of USB bandwidth, and I definitely recommend plugging them directly into your computer rather than an expansion card, and then using the expansion card for all your peripheral accessories, i.e. mouse, keyboard, speakers if you're the USB, stuff like that. I will definitely be leaving links for all the software and hardware down in the description where you can go and get and find that stuff. So go check the description out and to where you can find all that down there. I'll also be leaving links and other things down there, so definitely check the description out in this video. Alright, let's get to the installation part of the process. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just a quick overview on how to install SteamVR. So go ahead and open up Steam, and from the Steam store, go to the search bar and type in SteamVR. Once you've done this, it should pop up with a listing of different things. We're going to want to click on SteamVR itself. Now on mine it's already installed and it says play now, it's in my library. If you don't have SteamVR already installed, you'll need to install it. It should be right here. Click install, go to the next step. Okay, let's get to the PSMoveservice install. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to have to do is, of course, mount your cameras. Each camera will be mounted in each corner of the room with your shelving brackets, as you can see in this example picture. This picture shows the camera mounted on top of the shelving bracket. Now I used metal tape and double-sided sticky tape to affix the camera to the shelving bracket, and it works really well. Here's an example of how the best way to set it up as far as each camera's position. Now, in a 12 by 12 room scenario, this would be pretty optimal positioning. Now, each camera has roughly a max of around 8 feet, so it should overlap pretty well in the center. Here's another example. For the best results, cameras should be between at least 6 and 7 feet high, or about 6 to 8 inches above head height, just like the little blue man you see in the diagram there. Okay, once you have mounted your cameras and positioned them correctly, you're going to want to go ahead and plug in all your camera USBs into their extension cables and plug those into your computer like so. Note that I'm plugging mine directly into the motherboard, and as you can see here, I have my PCIe card installed as well. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the camera driver setup. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do, of course, is gather up all the software. Download all the software, and I would suggest making a folder on your desktop. Name it anything you'd like, but I named this one PSMoveservice Install Files. Now, in here, I put all the software, but I also made a new folder called Bridges, and I put the bridges in here, the PSMoveservice SteamVR Bridge and the PSMove Freepie Bridge. I put those in here just so they're in their own folder, and I'll get to that a little later. So once you've done that, you're going to want to install the drivers for the cameras themselves. The best way to check to make sure the cameras are being seen by the computer is going to the device manager. And you can literally just go to your start menu, type in the search bar, and type in device manager, and it should be the first thing where it says device manager control panel. You click right there. Once you've done this, in the device manager, right down here it'll say libusb Win32 devices. Click this and you should see 4 of them. If you don't, then either something went wrong or one of the cameras isn't compatible. Something's not working right, but you should definitely see 4. Yours may have a little orange triangle or cone, I should say, something like that next to it, but don't worry. So we'll get to the next part. Let's go ahead and click out of the device manager and open up Zadig that's in your PSMove Install Files folder. Once Zadig opens, click down the options menu and list all devices. Once you've done this little drop down menu here, click on USB camera B409241 interface 0. This should look almost identical to the one I have here. Yours may look slightly different, make sure, but it should look the same. And make sure you're selecting 0 and not 1. Remember, 0, not 1. And then right here in this little drop down I'm moving with, you want to select lib USB Win32 and click replace driver. Now just wait a moment, sometimes it will take about a minute. Once the installation is done, click close. And now you're ready to move on to the PSMoveservice install. Now that we have the drivers for the cameras installed, we want to go verify that this was successful in the device manager. So go ahead and go down to your start menu, search bar, type in Device Manager, just like we did before, and as you can see there, it just popped up. Click Device Manager, and then go down to where it says Lib USB Win32 devices, and click the little arrow. As you can see, we have 8 instead of 4 now. Before we only had the interface 1, now we have the interface 0. That means the camera driver installation was completely successful. And now we can move on to the PSMoveservice install section itself. Now we need to install the PSMoveservice. Go ahead and click the PSMoveservice setup 64.exe. Go ahead and click Next, Next, and Install. And go ahead and click Finish. This will install in the program files in the C directory. Go ahead and click Start, and you should see PSMoveservice and PSMoveservice config tool in your start menu. That means the PSMoveservice was installed correctly. Now the next step will be to test the cameras, but before we do, we want to do a restart to make sure there's no residual issues with the installation. Go ahead and restart your computer. Okay, once we got our computer restarted, we're going to want to go ahead and open up Windows Explorer or File Explorer. We're going to want to go ahead and click This PC, C Drive, Program Files, and scroll down until you see the PSMoveservice. Then click Bin, and now this is where we're going to be working for just here in a few moments. So we're going to want to open up the PSMoveservice admin.exe, and once it comes up here, you'll see a command line window with a bunch of text on it, but the one we're actually looking for is Found for Devices. What this means is PSMoveservice have picked up the cameras and it should be working fine. So now you're going to go ahead and click back on the window and click testcamera.exe. Now, the only thing we're really going to want to worry about over here is frame rate. The Y and the H. Y increases it, H decreases it. So what we want to do is we're going to start with 60 frames per second for a frame rate, and at 640 frames for a frame width. As you can see, the cameras all showed up. They're all over the place. Just go ahead and arrange them to where you can see them all at the same time and kind of in conjunction with each other, as you can see here. Now, as you notice, I have a glowing marker on the floor there. That's actually the head tracker that I made in one of my last videos, and you can go check that out in the description. So let me see. This is the camera that can see me the most. There's also these cameras here. But what we're focused on with this setup, with the 4 different cameras, is the first thing we want to check is frame rate. Is our frame rate good? Can I move my hand up and down and everything seems to be smooth? Well, yes and no, but it seems to be a little choppy, don't it? So let's move that frame rate up a little bit. Now, as you can see, everything went a little darker, but it's a lot smoother. As you can see, though, unfortunately, let's see this camera here, you can see a little bit of lines. That's basically the frame rate or the bandwidth being really high. But this should be 75 frames, as you can see here. That's okay. And actually, this is what I run normally most of the time, is 75 frames per second for a tracking. And it seems to be very fluid. There's not a whole lot of jiggle or anything. And that's what you want in VR, is very fluid movements. Now let me get all these back real quick, and I want to show you something. 2 things. Number 1, with every camera, you're going to want to be able to see the tracker in the middle. Now I say this because it's the easiest way to do it. Granted, we're going to be setting our system up on a raised surface first, but after that you should be able to use the floor. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is, now that we've centered our tracker, got all our cameras where we want them, we want to make sure that we can see our head in our play space. Now, the way I'm going to be setting this up is actually standing room. So if this is my center, as you can see, you should be able to see me. And not only that, most of the time, the cameras should see me when I bend down and touch the floor with my controllers. The only other time that you're going to have problems is if you go too high. The cameras may have problems seeing you with your controllers too high because it won't track above a certain height. But if you bring it just far enough down, it should track right here. Now, the reason I have it set up this way is two reasons. One, this is more of a rectangle shape. And the reason it's a rectangle shape rather than a square is because my play space is small. I have limited room. The other reason, the cameras are only about 6 feet high roughly. They're a little higher than my head. I'm 5'7.5". These are just a little under 6 feet, maybe 5'11", 6 foot, somewhere in there. But most of the games I play, I have no problems. So just keep that in mind though. And you guys can also experiment too. This is the recommended best optimal setup. That is it. So this is what I'm showing you. Once you get to, like I said, set up to where you like it, frame rate's good, everything's good, because I will show you if you do go too high, your frame rate gets weird. So if we go one more higher, as you can see, everything goes choppy and crazy. So we definitely want to stay in that 75 frames per second range. Okay, once you get that done and you're happy with those results, go ahead and close out of PSMoveservice and camera test program. The next thing we're going to do is the Bluetooth install. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do is install our Bluetooth dongle. So go ahead and obviously unpackage that, all that good stuff. And then we're going to install that in our computer. Go ahead and plug it in. And down here in the lower right hand corner of the screen, you should see a little arrow. You click on that. And as you can see there, it says Bluetooth devices. But before we do that, I want to show you in Device Manager. So just as before, go ahead and click on Start, Search, and Device Manager. In Device Manager, you'll have all your stuff, but right here, usually up towards the top, you'll see Bluetooth. As you can see right there, ASUS USB BT400. That's my Bluetooth adapter. So we know it installed just fine. Now, yours may say something different, but that's okay. Just as long as it's recognized by Windows and it is definitely installed. Now that we got our USB Bluetooth dongle installed and working properly, we need to connect our controllers to our computer via Bluetooth, or should I say, pair them to the computer. In order to do this, we want to use our USB-B type cable that is used to charge these controllers, as you can see there. To do this, the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and plug your cable into the computer. Once you've done this, go ahead and click Start, PSMoveservice. You're going to have a command line window open just like earlier, and then click the PSMove config tool. Click Connect and Controller Settings. Once you have done this, you can go ahead and plug in your first controller, like so. When you do this, you'll have a red flashing light indicating that it is charging, just like it would charge. And you can actually charge these with the computer after you, of course, do that. But I would definitely actually recommend getting a charging dock if you can. Makes the whole life a hell of a lot easier. So, in the PSMove config tool, go ahead and click Pair Controller, and we're going to want to hit the PS button, or it's called the PlayStation button, on the PSMove controller until we fill up the yellow bar. As you can see there, it said it's setting up. Sometimes this takes a minute or so. It's kind of a pain in the butt. There we go. Yep, that one done. So you can unconnect this one. Take a note of the controller ID. That one was 0. And then this one, we're going to do the same thing too. Go ahead and connect it, click Pair, PS button. And there we go. Let go. Now, as you can see there, it says cyan. I'm actually going to change the controller 0, which is this one here, to a different color. I'm actually going to change it to magenta. And the other one's going to be cyan. The only reason is on my particular controllers, I have these kind of colored lanyards. This one's more of a pinkish or magenta color, and that one's a blue color, so it matches. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And I'm going to go over to my next controller, do the same thing. Now you can change these colors to anything you want. Basically what you want to do with the controller colors anyways is pick colors that are not 100% common in your play area. So if you have a lot of green LEDs or things, you don't want to use green. If you have a lot of blue LEDs or a lot of blue, bright blue things, you don't want to use blue. If you have a lot of magenta or pink, really bright pink things around, you don't want pink. It all depends on what colors you have around. So for example, this one, this little red yellow head tracker that I made, doesn't really work very well in my environment. Now why did I make yellow for this one? This is because this is an example head tracker. The one I actually use is green, not yellow. Okay, now that we have our colors switched to where we want them, we definitely want to start with a calibration. So let's go do that now. Okay, now that we're to the point where we need to actually calibrate the controllers, we need to do the magnetometer calibration first. So in order to do that, make note of which controller it is. Obviously we have the magenta one. We're going to click controller calibration, and we're going to click magnetometer. Now if you do have a newer PSMove controller that came out with the PSVR, and it does have a gyroscope in it, you're going to want to calibrate the gyroscope. So go ahead and click calibrate magnetometer, because mine are the older ones. And actually before you do anything, go ahead and rotate it and kind of zoom out a little bit. Grab your controller, and when you do this, it's going to light red. And I'm going to grab my thing. And what I do is I like to kind of do it a zigzag. As you can see, I'm filling up that bar, and I just want to keep doing that on both sides until it doesn't grow anymore. And we just want to fill that circle with as much dots as you possibly can. You're also getting a workout at the same time. And you know, flip it up and down to make sure that you're getting every point. Again, keep doing it until it fills up. Alright, once you've done that, you need to make sure, because this is the front facing of my play area. That is the direction I will be pointing when I play video games. I'm going to point the trigger in that direction. So as you can see, if I was going to hold this controller, trigger's right there, I'd set it like this. And then go ahead and click OK. And what this is going to do is it's going to magnet and make sure it's stable, as you can see there. So if I point it forward, it points forward. It's a little weird, so if you do that, you can click the select button while it's down like that, and it'll return. So as you can see there, everything's good now. And now you're going to want to go ahead and repeat this with the other controller. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is go ahead and get our virtual tracker set up. Okay, now that we have paired each controller, selected each controller color, and calibrated each controller's magnetometer, we need to set up the virtual tracker for the HMD. So to do this, we need to make sure that we have closed out of the PSMove service and the PSMove service config tool. If you have done this, we're good to go. If you haven't done it, go ahead and do that and then follow along. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up Windows Explorer, and we're going to go here to the search bar, type in %appdata%, scroll down to where it says PSMoveservice, and where it says HMD Manager Config, open that file, the JSON file. And the virtual HMD count, we're going to change that to from a 0 to a 1. And then we're going to save the file and close out of the file. Now, do not close out of this folder yet, because we're going to use this here in just a moment. So go ahead and minimize it first. Now we're going to open up our PSMoveservice install files folder we have on our desktop, or wherever you made it. And then open up your bridges folder. Now in this folder we have the PSMove Freepie Bridge Release 16 and the PSMove SteamVR Bridge 1.5.1. Go ahead and we're going to unzip these. So I use 7-zip. 7-zip is a free archiving tool, so if you don't have it, definitely go grab it. But just go ahead and we're going to unzip it and extract it to its own folder. That's what this means here. And we're going to do the same with the SteamVR Bridge. Now, the only one we're really going to worry about right now is the Freepie Bridge. But before we do that, we need to open up the PSMove service itself. Just like normal, it's going to run that CMD, come back to the folder, and we're going to go into the PSMove Freepie Bridge folder and run the PSMove Freepie Bridge. Now what this will do is it'll bring up a command line just like the other. But this time we're going to type 1 for HMD, because that's the virtual tracker we're going to use. And we're going to enter the ID of the device that we're going to use. And to my knowledge, it's never different, and it's always device 0. Once you've done this, down here at the very bottom you should see Freepie Move Client acquired HMD 0. If you see that, it was successful. You can go ahead and close these out now. And if you want to, you can close this or you can leave it up. It's up to you. I'm going to close it and come back to it. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and come down here into our PSMoveservice app data folder that we have open. Down here at the very bottom you should see virtual HMD 0 JSON file. Open this JSON file up. There should be a bunch of stuff in here. It even says the tracking color. Now we're not going to change that in here. We're going to change that in the PSMove config tool here in just a moment. But first, what we want to do is change this bulb radius from 2.25 to 2.0, because the 2.0 is what the ping pong ball size is, not 2.25. Once you've done this, go ahead and click File, Save, click out of both folders, and we're definitely ready for the Freepie install. Now we're going to go ahead and install the Freepie application. So go ahead and open up the PSMoveservice install folder, and this Freepie.msi, this is what we're going to use to install Freepie with. So click that, click Next, accept the terms, because it is, I think it's freeware. So click Next, Next, and install. And this is just going to install it in the standard folder on your C drive. And you can go ahead and click Finish. Now, this is where we're going to want to go ahead and print our calibration mat and tape it to our table. Once you have this done, we're going to go ahead and go to the next section. So now we're going to be doing the color filter calibration for both the HMD and the controllers. We're also going to do the tracker pose calibration for both the HMD and the controllers. As you can see, I have my HMD tracker sitting there on my calibration mat. The calibration mat is facing towards my front direction where I'm going to be having my play area. Now, as you can see, it's also taped, my calibration mat is taped to the raised surface / of course table. In this case it's a table, and the table is directly in the middle of my play area. If you noticed earlier, the tracker on the floor was directly in the center of a black X that I made on the floor with electrical tape. Okay, so in Windows, go ahead and click Start. We're going to run the PSMove. Then we're going to go ahead and click the PSMove config and click connect. Now, once you get to this point, you're going to want to go ahead and click HMD settings. And in here, we need to change our tracking color to the color we're going to be using. In my case, it's green. Your case, it may be different. Remember, everybody's going to be different because the simple fact is it depends on your environment. If you have more yellow lighting, you're not going to want to use a yellow tracker. If you have more green, blue, whatever color it is, lighting in your room, you're not going to want to use that color tracker. Once you've changed the color here, go ahead and return to main. Go to tracker settings and go down to where it says HMD0 virtual green. Now, or whatever color you select, I should say. I'm going to go ahead and click calibrate HMD color tracking, click calibrate HMD tracking colors. And in here, you're going to have a bunch of things. So first thing we want to do is change our frame rate for each tracker ID. Now the tracker IDs are your cameras. So go ahead, and as you can see here, if I change it, this one's 40, 40, 40, and then 75. So we're going to change this one to 75. This one's 75. Oops, sorry about that. And this next one to 75. Now again, this also depends on your particular computer setup as well. Maybe your computer doesn't have as much bandwidth as mine, I don't know. Once you've done this, go to tracker 0, and on the middle of the ball, right click, and do this for each tracker. Also a note, make sure that the video filter is in BGR mode. Now that you've done this for each tracker, go back to tracker 0 and change the video filter mode to masked. The reason we want to do this is actually what the PSMoveservice is going to see to track each color. So this one actually looks pretty good. Now the tracking color, or the tracking ball on top of the HMD tracker is going to look a little weird because it's not a complete 100% circle. It's probably like a 90% circle. So this looks pretty good. I just went ahead and right clicked on it again, kind of filled it out a little bit more there. This one's a little bit need of some touch up. That one looks good, and that one looks good. Now remember, if you did not change in that virtual tracker setting in the app data folder from 2.2 to 2.0, you won't even see this. It won't track it at all. So go ahead and save default profile. Now that we know our trackers are all good there, and change this back to BGR first, and then click tracker settings. This will take us back to this menu. This is where we're actually going to go compute the color tracking for the controllers. Now I'm just going to start with magenta, so you can do either or. And I'm going to swap out my tracker. I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off. And as you can see, it'll see it in either one. Now my trigger is pointed that way, and so I'm going to just put it right there to where all the cameras can see it, and we're going to do the exact same process. Right click, next tracker. Right click, next tracker. Right click, next tracker, so on and so forth. I'm going to change it to masked, and just check all the trackers to make sure everything is good. And that one looks really good, so shouldn't have to do anything there. Now we're just going to swap my controller out like so, and right here it says PSMove controller ID 0, change it to 1. As you can see there, it says yellow. This is wrong. This is supposed to be magenta for my particular setup. If you have a wrong color, you could change it up here but we definitely want to go see what's going on. Actually, that one's blue. Cyan, my bad. So basically, we were in this menu here. Go to tracker settings, return to main, go to controller settings, and go over one. As you can see, it's changed to yellow. We want to change this to whatever color suits you. For me, it's cyan. Make sure both of the colors just like before. And as you can see, my controller is working just fine. Now that we have done the color filter calibration for the virtual HMD and for both PSMove controllers, we now need to calibrate the tracking poses for each. Go ahead and put the HMD tracker on the number 1 and then click Compute Tracking Poses using HMD. Next, check each tracker and make sure it is seeing the HMD tracker OK. You should see a red bullseye with a blue box. If you see this, go ahead and click Looks Good. Next, click Trust Me, it's stable, because it shouldn't be moving. Each tracker will take a sample, and when it's finished, it'll be ready for number 2. So move the tracker to the number 2 spot on the calibration mat. Then go to number 3. Number 4. And finally number 5. Once the calibration has finished, you should be able to see that the virtual HMD is tracking with no problems. I'll go ahead and pick it up. Yep, no problems. Let's go ahead and set that there. Now that we have the virtual HMD tracking poses set, we need to do the same thing with the PSMove controllers. First thing you're going to need to do is go ahead and put the first PSMove controller on the number 1 spot and click Calibrate Tracking Poses using Controller. Remember that the controller needs to be standing face up like it is, and the controller trigger needs to be facing the direction of your front of your play area. If everything looks good, everything's stable. Before you do this, actually, go ahead and click Next Tracker. We just want to make sure the red dots there in the center is good. So click Looks Good. And each thing will take a sample. You're going to pick up the controller and move it to number 2. You're going to pick up the controller, move it to number 3. You're going to pick up the controller and move it to number 4. And last but not least, you're going to pick up the controller and do it to number 5. Move it to number 5. Once every sample has been completed, you can pick up the controller. I had to pull out a little bit so you can see the whole tracking area. And as you can see, it's tracking really well. See, even here. Let's see, it's centered there. Now, I'm going to zoom in real quick. I want to show you something. So, as we kind of laid the controller down, it's kind of facing the wrong direction. So we can just hit that select button, and as you can see, it's nice and straight now. Woo! Yeah. Now, you're going to repeat this step for the other controller. So, you're just going to turn the tracker settings, change the tracker, or change the controller, compute tracker poses. Again, as you can see, everything's working just fine. At this junction, I would go ahead and put both controllers on the table facing up and put your HMD tracker there as well. Because what we're going to do now is click tracker settings, and we're going to click here and move it to all and click test tracking poses. And as you can see there, everything is in thing. We're going to zoom out a little bit too, and as you can see, it also 0, 1, 2, and 3, and it shows all your trackers. Everything looks good. This is what we want to see. Now, in a perfect situation, you have a square room. These controllers have roughly about an 8 feet max range. So once you've done this, we're going to go ahead and install the PSMove SteamVR Bridge. Click out of both the PSMove config tool and the PSMove service. And now we're going to go to the next section, which is the PSMove SteamVR Bridge install. Now that we've done the color filter calibration and the tracker pose calibration for both the HMD and the controllers, we're going to go ahead and set up the PSMove SteamVR Bridge and Driver4vr. So let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and open up your PSMoveservice install files folder, bridges, and remember we already unzipped this earlier, so you can go ahead and click PSMove SteamVR Bridge 151. And down here, there's a bat file. It's the install setup Win64 bat for the SteamVR. Go ahead and click that, and it's going to pop up this little window. Click this PC, C drive, program x86, and scroll down until you see the Steam folder. Now, the reason we need to find the Steam folder, the root of the Steam folder, I should say, as you can see there, is we need to make sure that it installs it there, because basically what this is doing is installing the drivers for the PSMove service in Steam. So now we're going to go ahead and click OK. As you can see, it copied the files, and hit enter twice, and that'll make that go away. Now, what we're going to do now is go ahead and install Driver4vr. Now, Driver4vr is mainly for the PCVR folks that don't have the 6 degrees of freedom headsets, like the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, the Oculus Rift S, you know, yada yada, so on and so forth. And, of course, Windows Mixed Reality. In order to do this, we need to go ahead and click the PSMoveservice install files directory that we have here, and if you should have downloaded it, just like we did, like we said earlier, you're going to go ahead and run the setup.exe. Click accept, next, 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 and install. As you can see, the components have been installed with success, and go ahead and click close. It'll finish the setup, and click finish. Next step we're going to go ahead and do is the Autohotkey install. Again, one of the software that we needed. Now again, this is actually optional, but I definitely recommend it. So if you don't want to do this step, go ahead and skip it, but I would definitely recommend doing it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and hit setup. And in this thing, we're just going to use the express setup. Basically, it just puts it in our installation directory. Or the default directory, I should say. That's all there is to it. We're going to go ahead and run Autohotkey once. And it looks like this. You can go ahead and close this window once it opens. And then click exit. That's all there is to that. Pretty simple. Okay, in order to use the Autohotkey, I have put a ghettovive.ahk download button, or a download directory in the description. So you should have this ghettovive.ahk. Go ahead and copy it to your desktop. Now, you also have one that says ghettovivekill.bat. Right click it and go down and send to desktop create shortcut. The reason we're doing this is we want to make sure that we can run it in administrator mode. Now, what we want to do is right click on the one on the desktop, the ghettovivkill.bat, go down to properties, and in the shortcut tab, whatever you call it, go ahead and click advanced, and see where it says run as administrator. Click that little check mark, click OK, click apply, and click OK. Now the reason we set it up that way is so it will run better. It will run the way it should, because without running as administrator, you'd have to literally select it every time. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Now we want to turn our attention to the ghettovive.ahk that we've put on our desktop here. So this one we're just going to go ahead and right click, edit script, and what you want to do is this one should all be good for me, but you want to actually change this to the directories where this is supposed to be. Your Freepie directory shouldn't be much different than mine, and your PSMove service directory shouldn't be much different from mine. What's mainly going to be different is the Freepie Bridge. Now the Freepie Bridge is what we set up earlier for the head tracking. So depending on where you put it and how you set up your file, because your folder may be different than mine. Mine says PSMove service file installs, or install files, sorry. As you can see, PSMove service install files /bridge /PSMove Freepie Bridge release 16 / and then PSMove Freepie Bridge. If I go to that folder directory and I click on this right here, it'll give me that entire directory. So you can copy and paste that right there. Same directory. Again, you want to change that to whatever directory you're using. Once you've done that, once you've changed those directories to the correct directories, you can close out of those things, right click on the file, and compile script. It should put a folder, or a file on your desktop that says ghettovive.exe. Now, before we actually do anything with this, we want to go run Freepie first. So click Start and type in Freepie. Should come up with the little icon. Click it. And as you can see here, it's running. But you want to go File, Open, and it may not come up with this. If it doesn't, go find your directory. So obviously it's on my desktop, so we're going to click Desktop, PSMove Service Install Files, Bridges, the Freepie Bridge, and we're going to run the Freepie example script. Then we're going to run script, or script, then run script. As you can see, that's grayed out. The only reason we did this is so when we actually run this for the first time later, it'll know where the directory is, and it should run it right away. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and set up our button layouts for the PSMove controllers for SteamVR. So let's go do that. Okay, now we want to go ahead and set up our button mappings for SteamVR for the PSMove controllers. So to do this, in your PSMove service install files folder, you should have a file called PSMove service button settings. All you gotta do is open that, and this is your button layout. So go ahead, copy this entire thing, copy it. You can go ahead and close it. And since we already have an Explorer window up, just go ahead and scroll down to this PC, C drive, program files x86, and scroll down to where it says Steam. Once you've done this, you want to click on Config. And in the Config folder, scroll down to the very bottom, and you'll see a file called SteamVR.vr settings. Open this up, And this is what you should look like. It should look like if you've never used SteamVR before. So, right here at this bracket, go ahead and select that and paste. And this is what it should look like. This top bracket for some reason is a little far forward. Doesn't really matter, it'll work the same. But this is what it'll look like when it's done. Go ahead and hit File, Save, and the button mappings should stick with no issues. Go ahead and close out of that. And now what we want to do is get to the good stuff. Before we really start with anything SteamVR or anything else, we actually want to run the Autohotkey for the very first time, just to make sure there's no errors. So go ahead and run this. As you can see, it auto starts everything for you. Now what we want to see is one, Freepie. As you can see, the script is here and it's running. Now sometimes I will warn you, this will crash and not run at first, so you'll have to stop it and restart it. But sometimes it may only take 1 or 2 times. Not a real big deal. The other thing we want to make sure that the PSMove Freepie Bridge is running just fine. And then lastly, the PSMoveservice is running. If all 3 of these are running from the Autohotkey.exe, that is awesome. Now, the next part, this is where that getovive kill.bat comes in. Now, this bat file should work for everyone the same way, and I'll show you why. All it does is kills the AXE files. So it just searches your computer or your services to make sure that these services are shut down when this bat file is run. That's all it does. It makes things a little more simpler. So this is a good time to test this bat file. Go ahead and click on it, and as you can see, all the processes were killed successfully. And click enter. At this point, this is where everything should be installed and running properly. This is where we can finally run SteamVR for the first time and do the standing room setup. Let's go do that now. Alright, now that we have everything set up, the software, the hardware, we're going to want to set up the headset and the 2 controllers in SteamVR using standing room. Now, with my situation the way it is, I can't really do room scale very well just because I don't have a whole lot of space. But you might. There is a wonderful guide at if you go up to YouTube and look up Daily Tech. Now, I'll leave a link in the description for his YouTube channel, but there's a great guide in there on how to do room scale. Now, using this picture as an example, you want to set up your table with your headset and the 2 controllers first, as shown in the picture. Note that the headset is in the middle of the table, over the spot that we marked earlier, and the bulb, well, your ping pong ball, is right smack dab in the center of that paper. Once you've gotten this all set up, we can actually go to the computer and finish everything up. So on the computer side, we definitely want to go ahead and run getovive.exe first. What this is going to do is run the PSMoveservice, PSMove Freepie Bridge, and the Freepie input emulator. Note to open up the Freepie input emulator and make sure that the script is running. The reason is if the script isn't running, you'll have to kill using our kill.bat file and rerun the getovive.exe. But if everything is up and running, we should be good to open up Steam at this point. Once we have Steam open, we want to go ahead and run SteamVR, which is in the upper right hand corner here, this little button. And as you can see, as soon as I hit that SteamVR, the 2 controllers light up and Driver4vr comes up. We'll get the Driver4vr in here in just 1 second, but first I want you to go to the little menu here and run the display VR view. This just makes things a lot easier. Now, once you've done that, go ahead and over here in the head tracking in Driver4vr, click the drop down and hit free track. Once you've done this, go ahead and start Driver4vr. Then go ahead and go to Steam, the little menu, and we're going to run the room setup. This way we can set up the headset and the two controllers in here to make sure everything's going to run smoothly. Once you get into this menu, we're going to run standing room. Now, if you want to run room scale, go ahead and go over and check out daily text video. I'll leave a link down in the description for that. But for my personal space requirements, standing room is the way to go for me. And it's probably the easiest way to set things up. So click standing only. As you can see, the two controllers are seen and the headset seen. The headset will be whatever your headset is. In my case, it's the DirectTech VR Tech VR PC headset. If you have RiftCat, you'll have a different icon. If you have Trinos VR, you'll have a different icon. And of course, if you have ALVR, you'll have a different icon. Now, also, just want to note that these two controllers are showing up. The D4 is for Driver4vr, and the 4 trackers are showing up as well. Go ahead and click next. We're going to calibrate center. And what that's doing is calibrating where that thing is looking. And obviously we want it looking straight forward. Go ahead and click next. Now, just like it shows in the little thing there, we want to measure how far from the floor to the little glowing ping pong ball, the green one. For me, it's 30 inches. So that's what I'll be putting in. For you, it will be whatever your height is. Then go ahead and click next, and done. Okay, if everything went okay, everything should be working properly. If I pull this back, it should be going back and forth. But as you can see, it's not. If I go side to side, it's going all wonky. How can we fix that? What is up with that? Well, it's actually a very, very easy fix. If you go to settings, and you see it's angle correction. So if we delete that 0, now for me, it's minus 90 degrees. For you, it will be whatever you have. You might want to play with that setting a little bit to see what it actually is. But as you can see now, if I pull back, pull straight back, and if I push forward, it pushes forward. Now, we're ready to actually go into SteamVR, do the controller calibration as it says there on the screen, and play some video games. So let's get to that part. Okay, now that we have everything calibrated in SteamVR, as you can see, I can walk backward, walk forward, and my center line is directly in front of me. Now, as you can see, if I move my controllers, they're all wonky. We want the triggers to be facing in front of us, and we're going to hit the start and the select buttons on the side of the controllers, and we're going to hold our controllers right in front of our face and press the start and select buttons at the same time. As you can see, they're in the correct orientation, but they're a little off, so we want to fix that. So just keep hitting those buttons until they're about right. Now, as you can see, this is kind of wonky. The way you do that is hold the controller out in front of you like this and hit that select button. Same goes with the other controller. So as you can see, everything's pretty good. Another way to check to see if everything's lined up is just kind of peek out your VR headset. Now for me, my tracker's a little off, so we're gonna see if we can get that tracker. I think that did it. It looks like it did. And you can just turn around like so, and looks good. So everything should be good. Now when you do this, you want to make sure that you're standing in the center of your play space. Also, as you can see, my controllers may be good when I turn around, but I still have to fix them facing forward. But now everything should track right, see? Now, let's play a game. Okay, so it looks like our game is actually working. As you can see, I'm got head tracking. I can move around. Ooh, scary. I gotta wake up, huh?
You're awake.
Well, there's my hands.
There was a slight glitch while bridging out here.
Right, yeah. So, as you can see, I have full tracking. My hands are a little bit wonky. I don't know why that is, but if I turn around, my hands are working with me. Yeah, so everything seems to be tracking okay. No real funny issues or anything. Alright.
I've been looking for you for a long
Alright.
time. I'm so happy I found you.
Alright. We're gonna grab this. Okay. Not sure where this will be. Aha, there it is. Gotta turn around. I don't know why my... Oh, there's my hands. And there we go. Alright, now we can get out of here. Woo! Alright. Well, with that is my phone, and with that working, I will wrap this up. So, let's get to that. So in conclusion, this is definitely a DIY money saver. Is it easy? Not really. I mean, if you have the correct guide, do all the stuff correctly, it shouldn't be that hard. If you follow my guide, and of course the guide on Hipstersoft's GitHub and the wiki, everything should be good. Remember, I'm going to leave everything in the description where you can not only find the software, the hardware, and even help files on where to go. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them down in the description. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I hope this was informative and you were able to learn something from it. Remember, this is a DIY VR setup. It's not a Vive, it's not an Oculus Rift, it's not even an Oculus Quest or any of the new ones that are coming out. I wish I had that stuff, but right now in this current situation, I can't afford it. This is what I have, and this is what I got to work with. But for what it is, it works pretty awesome, and it's pretty fun to use. So, again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, like and subscribe, and until next time, we'll see you later.